Hello, everybody, and welcome to the January 9th, 2019 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, Ephrom Josine. I'm getting faster and faster with those. Anyway, Donald Trump gave a television address last night on why we need the border wall. He didn't say anything that changed anyone's mind or really make any new claims that haven't been either debunked or greatly challenged. But that's what you'd expect at this point. Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi responded in a short 5-minute speech by looking and acting exactly like politicians, and then Republicans got onto them for being too professional. But when Warren and Harris tried to act more casual, they also got insulted. What I'm saying is these people will always be angry. So tell me, why is Pelosi still trying to pander to these idiots? Like, seriously. A meeting was also held today where they were supposed to come to a compromise and end the government shutdown. And Donald Trump stormed out of that meeting once they continued having the position that they won't fund the border wall, the same position they've had for months now. So why is he even surprised? For that matter, why did he even go to the meeting? Because he knew he was going to storm out at some point. You just have to know that. That's the kind of person Donald is. You know, just at what point do you say, I'm not even going to go? Apparently, it's when the media stops pointing out that you're leaving. Because this is all just a publicity stunt right here. That's what really the whole government shutdown is about. That's what the wall idea was about originally. It was just publicity. And they continued buying into it, and the media continued taking it seriously. And this is where we are. Anyway, now for some good news. The president is currently pulling military out of Somalia, a nation that we shouldn't have even been in the first place, considering they haven't attacked us. I don't even think they have an official government still that isn't run by the UN. There's really no point in keeping our military there, but apparently we were there. Well, I knew we were there, but you know what I mean. It's very odd that we were there. And luckily, the U.S. is finally pulling military out of there, which is good. I will give Donald credit for this, but John Bolton is still involved. You see, Donald clarified a couple days ago that he never said we'd get out of Syria quickly, which means we'll just sort of stay there until John Bolton says I can leave. At this point, the entire Donald Trump administration could best be described as broken promises on foreign policy. He said he'd make us friends with North Korea. He kinda had improved relations, but we're still enemies with them. They still haven't agreed to any kind of peace deal. He said he'd get us out of Afghanistan. He's increased troop levels in Afghanistan. He said recently he'd pull us out of Syria. Well, now apparently we're doing that slowly. Quite frankly, it's safe to say that Donald's only real philosophy on foreign policy is just spite at this point. Well, that is spite for congressional Democrats who sometimes do, for the record, go too far in the pro-military direction. Not spite for the people that actually screwed up our foreign policy, people like, oh, I don't know, the person who he made National Security Advisor, Jonathan Bolton, one of the top neoconservatives of the Bush administration. Or heck, he's invited Henry Kissinger to the White House several times now. The same Henry Kissinger who was condemned by a human rights court of crimes against humanity on September 11th, 2001. Next up, 2020 presidential candidate and the personal choice so far of this show, Richard Ojeda, went on Bloomberg TV to talk about the decline of the middle class. One of the things he said was, quote, "The dirt poor will eat the filthy rich," in reference to the fact that, well, the poor are going to rise up when you look at our current situation. Now, here is my best advice to Richard Ojeda. Don't say that. You sound like a communist when you say that. Now, I know you're not a communist, to be fair. However, there are people in this country who still consider Bill Clinton a communist. So at this point, I've just assumed no one in this country but me knows what communism actually is. However, Mr. Ojeda, I'm going to defend you still, because you are still completely correct. If you do not believe me, well, just look throughout history. What happened? We mentioned communist countries. Look at East Germany, for one thing. The poor revolted against the government that was rich. You can see that. Heck, what do you think caused the Russian Revolution to begin with? It was that the Tsar was rich and the people in Russia were struggling. Now, I don't agree with Lenin, to be clear. However, there was a reason a revolution occurred. Look at the French Revolution. That occurred because the poor people felt oppressed by the rich people. And to be fair, they basically were. The aristocrats, the clergy, those kinds. In fact, I believe the French Revolution is actually where the term bourgeoisie first came from. However, that was a reference to the middle class as opposed to a reference at the top. If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on that. Or heck, that nearly happened in the United States. For about a good 30 to 40% of the 20th century, the United States nearly had a socialist revolution. Now, luckily, we were able to stop that because the progressive era happened, and instead we got great progressives, for the record, such as Theodore Roosevelt. But at the time, there were still several openly socialist mayors all across the U.S. A few even made it to Congress. And then, after the Great Depression, there was another good chance there was going to be either a socialist or fascist revolution. However, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected in 1932 and actually managed to stop that by creating social programs, which is Richard Ojeda's entire policy. Richard Ojeda's plans are not bad for the rich. If anything, they're a safety net for the rich, because if you don't have them, there's going to be a revolution, honest to God. As mentioned before, I gave those two examples. There are still tons. The idea of using social safety nets, by the way, to deter communist revolutions isn't a new idea. That's the exact same thing Bismarck did in Germany back when he ratified the country, or unified the country, my bad. He hated socialism, so he gave people health care, old age insurance, and workers' compensation to stop a full-on socialist revolution. Basically, what I am saying is, you can throw as many books by people like Milton Friedman and Murray Rothbard and Ron Paul out the window that you want at the protesters, but they're probably going to be too busy eating them because they don't have any food as opposed to reading them. The fact is, if you, as a rich person, want to not have to worry about a revolution, so far the best candidate is Richard Ojeda. I'm Ephrom, and good night.